morning, everyone. So good to be here. Thank you for coming. My name is Eleanor Davis. I am the Director of Government Innovation for Safety Net at Code for America. And I'm joined by 3 panelists and members of Code for America's Safety Net Innovation Lab. So we have with us today Corie Nazdan, who is the Director for the New York State WIC program. Dan Giacomi, who is the Interim Director of Program Oversight and Grant Administration at the Connecticut Department of Social Services, and then Sherra Ayala, who is the Executive Director of the Family Investment Administration at the Maryland Department of Social Services. So great group with us here today. Thank you for coming, panel. So I'll kick us off just sort of by naming that we are at a really unique moment in safety net delivery across the country that is presenting pretty tremendous challenges for delivering benefits to clients who need them. The COVID-19 public health emergency has ended, and with it, we're seeing the end of a lot of pandemic-era flexibilities and supports, such as the SNAP emergency allotments. States are also facing a nationwide workforce shortage, along with increased caseloads, which is a tough combination. And this, of course, has created just a whole host of challenges for government agencies who are trying to sort of meet the evolving needs of clients in this current moment. At the same time, though, we also have a federal administration that has expressed more interest in the customer experience and a bigger commitment to providing equitable services than really ever before, I think. And we've also seen a really large influx in federal funding for safety net programs, which presents a lot of significant openings for new innovations to meet client needs. So I'm really curious to hear from you all in your positions in state government, how you're navigating this really complex moment in service delivery. So I want to start with Corie in New York. So you started in your role in the New York State's WIC program just before the pandemic hit in 2020. Great timing. So what are the biggest challenges and opportunities you're facing right now in regards to meeting the needs of your clients?
So before the pandemic, the WIC program, due to federal regulations, was 100% in person. And so the WIC program is a nutrition program, and what that meant for our families was that they had to come into the office up to 4 times a year, and even sometimes more, depending on their situation, for a nutrition assessment, nutrition education, things like height, weight, and even blood work screenings for anemia. So it was a lot. And then we quickly had to pivot to being fully remote once COVID hit. So we worked with USDA to obtain waivers for physical presence and remote benefit issuance, which enabled us to offer appointments by phone. We were able to defer height, weight, and blood work measurements. And interestingly enough, we started to see almost immediate increases in our participation, which was great. With the public health emergency ending, our current waivers for those flexibilities are expiring, but fortunately USDA offered new waivers to start in August, which will allow us to continue some of those flexibilities. So this is really great news for the WIC program and our participants. We're really excited. We know that there's some challenges for states as we try to figure out how we're going to operationalize those new waivers, but this is such an exciting opportunity for the program.
That's so great to hear. So I'm curious, what are some of the different participant and government agency needs that you're trying to balance as you're thinking about sort of how you want to redesign this WIC program in New York?
So I think we recognize the value of a face-to-face appointment for many reasons, and from a programmatic perspective, we're lacking some good health data, for heights and weights. Since we're not seeing those infants and children in person, we're not able to track, growth rates as well. There's certain nutrition risks that are more difficult to assess, when you're doing an appointment by phone. We also can't observe for physical signs of nourishment. Breastfeeding support's a little trickier by phone or, not in person. But our participants love the flexibility. They continue to say how much they like it. They like the choice. They're choosing to come in, and being seen remotely. And our caseload, here we are over 3 years later, and it just continues to increase. I think, technology can help us balance this a bit. Things like live chat, which we're planning to implement. We just launched an online nutrition education platform for our participants. So despite not being seen in person, we still have a way to support those families. Our goal is always to do better and continue serving as many people as we can that are eligible.
It's so great to think about how you're using technology to really strike that balance. I want to pivot a little bit to a slightly different challenge that we mentioned up top that I know is really top of mind for you, Dan, which is the sort of historic workforce shortages that many states are currently facing. And this is, of course, really putting pressure on the staff that you already have, and is making what was already a hard job even harder. So you've shared some of the challenges that Connecticut's currently facing. Can you talk a little bit about some of the ways that you're using technology to reduce burden for the clients you serve, but also for the staff that you have?
Sure, certainly. Yeah, so Connecticut is not and was not immune to the workforce challenges being seen across the nation. Obviously, with the pandemic, with the switch to many jobs going fully remote or hybrid and things of that nature, finding candidates to come do what can be a complex job, a stressful job, at times what seems like unrewarding job, though it is very rewarding, is difficult. We coupled that with some contract changes a few years ago that led to a large retirement wave of many of our most experienced, most knowledgeable staff in our agency. As of right now, or as of July of this year, I believe is actually more accurate, we're going to have over 230 eligibility staff that'll have less than 1 year of experience in the arena of service delivery. You couple that with the end of the public health emergency, as you mentioned earlier, and a lot of the flexibilities and waivers that were afforded to us by the federal government are now ending or changing or pivoting. For many of our staff, that means they have to relearn a process they haven't done in 3 years. But for those 230 plus staff that I just mentioned, it's like learning a brand new job for them. This is something they have never done before. And for many of our clients, it's the same thing. I look at things like what we call a mid-certification review, or we call it a PERF in Connecticut. Some of our clients and some of our staff have never seen the document before, have never had to fill it out and return it before, and now are going to be asked to do that. So it becomes a challenge to balance that with the ability or desire to innovate, as we'll talk about, I believe, a little bit later. But what we looked at is trying to figure out ways to leverage technology and leverage policy to lessen that burden or reduce the burden upon our staff and upon our clients. The clients themselves navigating a very difficult or tricky or complex system. The staff who are receiving angry phone calls or increased caseloads, or individuals coming in at the end of the month when families are concerned they may lose their benefits, or at the beginning of the next month saying, why did I lose my benefits? I feel like I did everything I needed to do and you still ended my benefits. And one of the ways that we came up with to do that was through our partnership with Code for America and doing a texting pilot and saying, if we're able to interact with these individuals early and often, we can alleviate that end of month or beginning of next month crunch by telling them, hey, this is coming up, this is due, and giving them an actionable call to action, really, to say, click here, you can go directly to our progressive web app and fill out your renewal form, be done within 10 minutes, and we can get to it quicker. And in doing that, we're able to, as I said, leverage technology, leverage the phone numbers that we have in the system. And we've seen, I believe it's an 84% deliverability rate in the messages we've sent thus far. And we've sent over 200,000 messages. We were able to scale up, and you mentioned the emergency allotments, inform people that emergency allotments were ending, as well as provide them resources of where they can look. And it's really been a huge success to reach out with and interact with individuals in a way we previously thought was impossible or very hard to be able to do.
Wow, that's so great to hear about the tremendous impact you've been able to have with the texting program. And I think what's so interesting to me, particularly about this approach, is that so often when we hear the word innovation, when we think of innovation, our minds go to like artificial intelligence or big tech, or sort of we think about these big complex systems. And often innovation actually is very small. It's about really streamlining processes. And sometimes it can mean even sort of carving things back or sort of reducing the number of questions you have on an application. It's not always sort of adding a fancy new thing. It can be very, very simple. So Lashira, I'm actually curious to hear from you. What are some of the ways that you're using technology in Maryland to process or to streamline processes to meet clients' needs?
Yes, so as we experienced in Maryland, I know throughout the nation, the pandemic was immensely challenging for us all. And it also created an abundance of opportunity to streamline processes. And in Maryland, at the onset of the pandemic, we saw a tremendous surge in applications, an over 400% increase of individuals and families applying for safety net programs. So we did use the technology that was available to us to streamline the processes so that wherever you were residing in Maryland, you did not experience a delay in the processing of your applications. And we did that by having the applications distributed throughout the state. So previously, before the pandemic, we had within our various counties and in our city, the jurisdictions in which the staff would work on only the cases of individuals who resided in their jurisdiction. With our streamlined statewide process model that we implemented during the pandemic, we were able to then streamline the process, and as mentioned, we had no negative impact as it related to our application processing timelines. So as we consider what we have implemented during the pandemic, we want to use those lessons learned to continue streamlining our processes in Maryland.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like it's clear from these three responses, at least at first, that you all are navigating a lot of competing priorities in your work. There's a lot of challenges that you're facing. I'm curious, given all the complexities and the enhanced workload that yourselves and that so many states are facing, why take on an ambitious partnership like the Safety Net Innovation Lab? Corie, you want to kick us off?
I think for us, innovation isn't even really extra, just how we solve problems. We need creative solutions to address the challenges in service and benefit delivery, but it can feel really hard to do that on our own. Despite us always doing our best to make sure that our participants have a good experience and are getting what they need, it can be challenging. And I think what's great about the Code for America partnership is it's not just here's some money, go ahead and do your project. The Innovation Lab has built-in support and expert resources to help us, and that's what makes it work.
That's great. Lashira, what about you?
Yes, I believe it's critical for us to have opportunities that are created for states to partner and learn from one another. And we're really having the similar experiences. One very recent one that I can attest to is for many of us who are in the SNAP sphere, we have, with the passing of the Consolidated Appropriations Act, we're implementing the EBT reimbursement for fraudulent activities. And in Maryland, we were able to use rapid prototyping to be able to stand up a process in less than 6 weeks. And as we all know, again, who are in the sphere, often when one state has found a process that works well, it'll be our federal partners or others who will reference, hey, call on this state. They can let you know what worked to get that plan submitted, what worked to have that process efficient. So as we are considering these the partnerships and how critical they are, I'd say examples like the EBT fraud is definitely a testament to why it's needed.
That's great. And Dan, you now have been working with Code for America's Innovation Lab for about a year. I'm curious what types of lessons learned you may have about sort of what makes innovative projects like this in government work. Or maybe you have lessons learned about what doesn't work.
Sure. I would say the first lesson that I learned personally is that when your boss comes and asks you how everything's going, you can't say, I think we've hit our stride, because then they'll put a new project onto you, such as our partnership with Code for America.
You love us.
No, I do. I'm completely kidding. I'm sorry. I warned Eleanor before that I had some cheesy jokes that I would throw in there, and that was one of them. No, we learned that in state government, innovation is hard at times. We are very bureaucratic, very policy heavy, very legalese in the way that we operate at times. So especially during a pandemic, it became a big challenge for us to balance the need to help people to do it quickly and to be able to scale, as Sherra just said, with the other side of the agency that was like, you have to make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's, triple check, have every policy reference, everything of that nature involved in it. And we had, needed someone to come in and say, hey, there's a way that you could do both of those things in an easy or more human-centered manner. And we're very grateful to be able to do that. It feels like another lesson learned would be that real sustainable change takes a lot of coordination. You have to make sure you have buy-in from the top down in every area, because if you don't, roadblocks get put up and people become very closed off to change, if you will. So those are the two biggest, and then quite frankly, speaking for Connecticut, because I don't want to speak for others, sometimes we just need to get out of our own way. We need to say that people are here, they want to help us free of charge. Why would we put up those roadblocks? Why would we not allow ourselves to be helped? So accepting the help when it's offered, knowing that it's coming from a good place and a place that will help all areas of your agency and your constituents is something that's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. So we've been talking so far about sort of why it's important to innovate to meet client needs, but I'm curious to sort of pivot to how do we start this process? What resources do states need right now to support this kind of work? Sherra, you want to kick us off?
So rather our changes that we're making, the innovations that we're implementing are big or small, we certainly need resources, and we need skilled resources. In Maryland, our governor, he has been quoted as stating that we are asset rich but strategy poor. And when I consider human services and the work that we do, beyond looking at the practical roles, so your social worker, your human services rep, ensuring that you have those individuals that are skilled in line of data scientists and social scientists on your teams, also in the realm of technology, to ensure that you have a robust team that can provide you with the data and the analyses so that you can make the appropriate data-driven decisions to ultimately arrive at those outcomes that we all want, at the core, helping individuals, the well-being of individuals. So as I'm considering at what resources we need, that's what we need, the skilled resources.
Yeah.
And I'll add that I think we need support in getting boots on the ground and hearing what our clients and our families need. Again, that's something that's a challenge for states, is getting the pulse of the people that they serve, of hearing what their needs are, what their wants are, what their struggles are, and then being able to react to it and create something that meets those needs, wants, or satisfies those struggles. Often in Connecticut, we expected clients to meet us where we were at. We would post things on our website or in our offices or tell people they need to call our phone line, but never really met them where they were at. And that was why, another reason that we thought the texting pilot would be so successful, because we're using an avenue to reach them where they are at, to give them timely, critical reminders and allow them to continue receiving the services that are tantamount to, survival for some.
Absolutely. Corie, what about you? What do you think states need?
I would say staffing and long-term funding to deploy the new technology and to help coordinate new and improved services, to our contractors and with our stakeholders. With that said, there's a lot of opportunity in WIC right now. We've got federal waivers to support us, committed staff, partnerships, and these all enable us to work together.
Great. So with just about a minute on the clock, this clock that's staring at me, I have one final question that I want you all to answer. So we've talked a lot about what is challenging for you right now, but we've also discussed that this moment of transition and change is opening up new opportunities to serve people in different ways. And so I'm curious to hear from each of you, what's one thing that gives you hope right now for the future of your program or your work? Dan, let's start with you.
Again, it'll sound cheesy, but I would say this summit itself really gives me hope. Being able to come together with partners from the federal government, from other states, civic technology, CBOs, philanthropy, et cetera, really shows that there is a robust group of individuals that want to be able to help, that want to create a better society, that want to be able to do things for the most vulnerable. And I'll say that there's plenty of work to be done in the arena and a seat at the table for everyone.
Thanks. Sherra?
Yes, for me is similar to Dan, a client-focused pattern of practice rather than compliance-focused. So really having that commitment and alignment from the national level, state level, local level, all of the various stakeholders to ensuring that we are committed to the well-being of individuals and families.
Thank you. And Corie, close us
Very
out.
quickly, in addition to everything I said for the last question, WIC is in a good position to meet participants where they're at, I think, and provide high-quality, participant-centered services.
That's great. Well, that's all the time we have. So I want to thank you all so much for sharing your wisdom. I want to thank you all for listening. That's it.